very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shayan Silva.
A very good evening. I'm Mahina Bongzo. Here's a look at your headlines tonight.
Sri Lanka's first ever communications satellite launched. District Secretary assures there will be no hassle for the public to obtain documents following the fire at the Colombo Kacheri. Former President says a government that believes the judiciary must act according to its whims bodes serious danger to democracy and people's freedoms. Former UNP MPs informed the working committee to take decisions that would ensure the betterment of party supporters. And spill gates of several reservoirs opened due to rising water level.
Taking a look at the stories in detail now. Sri Lanka's first ever communications satellite, Supreme Sat 1, was launched from the Zhejiang Space Center in Sichuan Province, China today.
The satellite was launched from Zhejiang Space Center in China this evening. It is reported that the satellite had successfully reached its orbit in space. Weather disrupted the original launch of the satellite, which was scheduled for last Thursday. The satellite is a joint venture between a private Sri Lankan entity and a Chinese corporation. Sri Lanka is now the 45th state to own a satellite. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department stated that the Lankan entity has drawn up plans to establish a satellite monitoring center in Pallekele, Kandy next year.
I am so happy to announce that Supreme Sat 1, the first Sri Lankan satellite, was launched very successfully from China today. As Sri Lankans, we are so happy because this is taking Sri Lanka to a new era actually.
On to other local stories now. Several divisions of the Colombo District Secretariat will begin operating from the Timrigassa Divisional Secretariat from tomorrow. The main building of the Colombo Divisional Secretariat, or the Colombo Kacheri, was completely destroyed in a fire that broke out last night. Meanwhile, the government analysts commenced investigations today to ascertain the cause of the blaze. A fire broke out at 7:40 last night in the upper floor of the Colombo Kacheri building from which the Colombo Divisional Secretariat operates. The fire had spread to the entire building owing to the presence of highly flammable materials such as documents and the wood used in the building. The fire department noted that the dry timber had caused the fire to spread rapidly. It took 5 hours for the fire to be doused. The fire department noted that the Ministry of Disaster Management.
Fire at the archives of the Anuradhapura Magistrate Courts. Fire at the Ministry of Economic Development. Number of documents at the Valikere prison destroyed in a fire during a clash at the prison. Isn't the public inconvenienced by the destruction of important documents belonging to them? When will measures be taken to safeguard these important documents?
Well, we will have details of the fire that broke out at the Colombo Kacheri later on the news bulletin. In more local news, today is the full moon Poya day when Lord Buddha dispatched 60 arahats to go forth for the good and happiness of the many out of compassion for the world.
It is on a day like today when Lord Buddha sent 60 arahants in various directions to propagate the sublime Dharma. It is also mentioned in history that Lord Buddha preached for a group including Thunbaj Atilian on a day like today.
Lord Buddha proved that all this is a myth and revealed the truth to the world on a Poya day like today. Therefore, this Poya day will pave the way for people who are blinded by myths to realize the truth and be truly awakened.
On to a story that made the headlines tonight now. Former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga says a government that believes that the judiciary must act according to its will and whims bodes serious danger to democracy and people's freedoms.
A document authored by former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga on democracy, the state and the judiciary goes on to list a series of incidents that mounted pressure on the judiciary, including the impeachment motion against Chief Justice Dr. Shirani Bandaranaike. In her document, former President Kumaratunga states that in the intolerant political environment that prevails today, judicial decisions unpalatable to the government are not tolerated. A dismissed workman has several institutions to seek justice from, but under the J.R. Jayawardena Constitution, judges of the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, who constitute the highest authority that dispenses justice to all, have nowhere to go if justice is denied to them. The document adds that her government's proposals for constitutional reform in 1997 and the 2000 draft constitution bill that were presented to Parliament provided for an inquiry of a judicial nature to be held outside Parliament when a motion for impeachment is presented against a judge. However, in the case of the Chief Justice, the inquiry under the draft constitution was to be held by a committee consisting of 3 persons, each of whom holds or have held office as a judge in the highest court of a Commonwealth country, or who holds or have held office as a judge of the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal. The document further notes that the draft constitution of 2000 did not become the supreme law of the land due to the inopportune actions of the UMP. What is surprising today is that a government led by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party has thought it fit to follow the Jayawardena Constitution and the standing orders passed during the Jayawardena administration, rather than amend standing orders or bring in legislation to provide for an inquiry of a judicial nature as envisaged by the draft constitution of 2000, a bill presented by a government led by the SLFP. The document adds that during her People's Alliance regime, the judiciary ruled against the government on several instances, yet the judges were not impeached on grounds of breaching parliamentary privilege. A judge may or may not perform to the expectations of the appointing authority or of the people, but judicial decisions need to be respected by all, especially the government. The institution known as the judiciary has grown through the ages to guarantee individual freedoms and a properly functioning, humane government. The concept of separation of powers guarantees that the 3 branches of state, parliament and other elected bodies, the executive and the judiciary, have the power and the ability to function freely and independently of each other's undue influence. The concept of separation of powers has proved to be a most essential cornerstone of democratic governance. The launch of the book titled Lessons Learned, Power Sharing Indispensable for Unity and Peace was held in Colombo last evening. The book has been authored by Thiruvana Karasu and the event was attended by several politicians and distinguished guests.
Lessons not learned. All this while we heard people saying about the Lessons Learned Committee. Now we have to be speaking about that this government has never learnt anything. We all thought from the time leaders change, things may change for the better for the minorities. But over and over again, we see difficult situation for the minorities. Every leader who is elected with the minority votes, and the promises that is given during election is so much so that soon after the election results are announced, that the minority will have a solution to their problem. But this is never ending.
There had to be a measure of political autonomy which should enable people to determine their destiny in the areas in which they lived. There were arrangements made for the Tamil-speaking provinces, the northern and eastern provinces, to merge and come together. And through the 13th Amendment, provincial councils were created with a certain measure of autonomy. Particularly because the Tamil people felt that the 13th Amendment was not adequate. Every successive government, whether it be the Premadasa government or the Chandrika Bandaranaga government, or even the Mahinda Rajapaksa government, have taken steps towards improving upon the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, all of which were substantial improvements on the 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
As mentioned earlier, several divisions of the Colombo District Secretariat will begin operating from the Timbirigassa Divisional Secretariat from tomorrow. Now, the main building of the Colombo Divisional Secretariat, or the Colombo Kachari, was completely destroyed in a fire that broke out last night. Meanwhile, the government and NALIS commenced investigations today to ascertain the cause of the blaze. A fire broke out at 7:40 last night in the upper floor of the Colombo Kacheri building from which the Colombo Divisional Secretariat operates. The fire had spread to the entire building owing to the presence of highly flammable materials such as documents and the wood used in the building. The fire department noted that the dry timber had caused the fire to spread rapidly. It took 5 hours for the fire to be doused. The fire department noted that the Ministry of Disaster Management informed them about the fire at around 8 last night.
මෙම ස්ථානයේ ගින්න විශාල වශයෙන් පැතිරලා මුළු ගොඩනැගිල්ල පුරාම විහිදලා තිබුණා. ඒ නිසා අපට ආධාර ලබා ගන්න උනා.
The fire spread rapidly in this building and we had to seek assistance. The main issue was obtaining water. The water in the fire engines were not sufficient. The nature of the building caused the fire to spread. We had to travel half a kilometer up and down to obtain water.
මෙම ස්ථානයේ ඉඳලා කිලෝමීටර භාගයක් විතර එහාට ගමන් කරන්න උනා වතුර පුරව ගන්න. මේ ස්ථානයේ ආවට කොහෙවත් වතුර නැති නිසා.
Although the fire was doused, smoke continued to rise from several sections of the building even by this afternoon. The building was constructed by the British in 1833 after Colombo was named the capital.
Well, I'm at the Colombo Kacheri building. Now what you see behind me is just a section of where the fire took place. Now according to authorities, the fire took place at around 7:40 last night. But however, the reason for the fire is yet to be ascertained. Now the government analyst department has been deployed to carry out investigations. As soon as investigations are concluded, the reason for the fire will be released.
The fire had caused major damage to the planning, finance and administrative divisions of the Colombo District Secretariat. The archives where all the old documents were stored is located here. It contained important documents in relation to the development in the district, documents from the respective ministries and other state institutions. We will be able to find some documents once we enter, and it is after assessing the damage that we can take measures. The district secretary noted that the damage cannot be estimated until the government analyst completes his investigation. The government analyst had not commenced investigations until 2 this afternoon. The police said that the cause of the fire cannot be ascertained until the government analyst completes his investigation. Our cameras captured the manner in which officials of the government analyst department commenced work this evening. One section of the destroyed building has been declared out of bounds to all personnel and security has been beefed up at that premises. The district secretary said that a stock of firearms that were to be disposed of was also inside the building. He added that as the army has records of the stock of arms, there will be no issue with regard to obtaining the records. In addition, Colombo District Secretary Kamal Padmasiri noted that the general public will be able to obtain information relating to births, deaths and marriage certificates as well as pensions without any hassle. He noted that they hope to continue operations of the District Samurdhi Division, the License Division, the Census Division, the Small Enterprises Division and other divisions from tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Minister of Public Administration and Home Affairs, W.D. Jesanaviratna, inspected the destroyed building today. Several parts of this building were destroyed owing to the fire. According to the information I received, the Finance Division and the Administrative Division and the archives were damaged. Everything in the upper floor has been destroyed. Meanwhile, United National Party parliamentarian Ravi Karunanayaka also visited the location.
We have to question how such fires arise. Later they will say that the important documents of the people are not where they were. Will people have to face problems with regard to their residence? Because we consider this as a dangerous situation, we came here to determine how we can protect this place and to render our support as the opposition.